So Elliot Friedman in that 31 Thoughts, as Ben just read that quote, the very end of it is...
You want me to read it again? My personal belief was that Mike Babcock returns for next season, but now I'm not sure. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that Buffalo asked to speak to him. What happens then?
So this is the take that I've been thinking about for the last couple of days and, haven't brought to the microphone yet. Because I remember in the NFL, when I was in university, I think it was Herm Edwards got traded from the New York Jets. And it wasn't big. He got traded to the Chiefs, and it was for a 4th-round pick. But it allowed the Jets to move off of a coach that they didn't want. Actually, you probably remember this.
So that's in a league you can trade coaches? Okay.
Hold on.
Carry on.
Yes. Again, not impossible. All right? I invoke not impossible. But the Jets traded for Herm Edwards. And it's something that's been done in the NFL before, right? Like, we were talking about Sean Payton a little earlier. The idea that, hey, the Cowboys have been interested in Sean Payton for a really long time. And probably the only reason that it didn't get done is because of an argument over whether it was going to be a 2nd-round pick or a 1st-round pick to acquire Sean Payton.
Blue Jays traded John Farrell to the Red Sox.
And
do we have an NHL example?
Blue Jays, we do not. However, there is a workaround. What if we just saw Elliot outline that with what if the Sabres asked to talk to Mike Babcock? What happens then, right? So clearly it's being put out there as an idea of there could be interest in Mike Babcock from around the league. And to me, right now, there are 2 teams that would greatly benefit from having a Mike Babcock. And those are the Edmonton Oilers, because there's no case for not playing Connor McDavid 23 minutes a night. I don't think that's a battle Mike Babcock's going to pick day 1 in Edmonton. But it's a place that could use structure. In fact, it looks a lot like, and Buffalo, to a certain degree, looks like a better version of what Toronto was when Babcock agreed to the deal. That those are 2 places where he was coming in to get rid of the blue and white disease. Mike Babcock was going to be the guy. He was going to be the pillar. He was going to offer stability. He was going to be the guy. If it's his way or the highway, you don't like it, you're going to get out. He's a proven winner. He's got the track record. Now, I think there's a lot of uncertainty as to how valuable his skill set is with this team and whether or not they have already gone down this line far enough where it's now too risky to keep Babcock. And again, I'm not overly sure. I think there's good arguments made on both sides, and I kind of go back and forth as to which one I believe any given day. Yesterday, watching the Columbus Blue Jackets power play stay on the ice for 2 minutes and then score against the Bruins was a day where I was more in the camp of goodbye, sir. My idea was this, is that could you trade a coach in the NHL? So I asked around, and people told me, no, you cannot trade a coach in the NHL. However, someone from the league told someone I know that it's not impossible, because what you could do is work it out ahead of time with all the parties involved, release the coach, and then have them go and sign with that team. And how it works in the NHL, which I did not know at the time, was when you fire a coach or you release a coach, however you want to phrase it, they sign another deal. They're not getting the Leafs money plus the other team's money. Like it's one pot of cash. And the Leafs have already paid a lot of Mike Babcock's contract. So it's not a lot of money on the books. It's actually very similar to the Patrick Marleau argument of, hey, well, you can take this quote unquote hit, but ultimately this is all you have to pay this coach. So what we're offering is probably a future Hockey Hall of Famer at a discounted rate where you would only have to sign him to potentially a 2-year extension because he's already got 4 years at, say, $7 million per. So you got to give him $14 million of your dollars, and you can have Mike Babcock come to your team. And we would like some form of lesser compensation, similar to the Herm Edwards thing, a 3rd or a 4th-round pick. I'm not asking for anything extravagant here. I don't want one of your top-end prospects. We know what the deal is here, but at least the Leafs are getting something, and I feel like it allows them to transition in a way where everyone would save face. Kyle Dubas looks smart for getting an asset. Mike Babcock is smart because he potentially gets away from a relationship he thinks is going to devolve and where he is not having the power that he once thought he was going to have. And it offers him security by getting more years from another franchise where he gets more money and in a place where, yeah, he's still going to be fairly visible in Edmonton and to a lesser degree, but still Buffalo. Gets more money, gets more term, and there's less risk for him because if he is fired this year, it's working under the idea that they have exited once again in the first round, and then maybe he doesn't carry the same cachet or the same value moving forward. So my idea is the Leafs should, they can't technically do it, but work around and find a way to kind of trade Mike Babcock.
So my brain is awash in things like I want to pick that apart and do. I want to fist.
You can.
It.
Hey,
you remember Fire Joe Morgan that the people go through?
You do it. You can cut this into a million pieces. I will not.
I'm
be
just
offended.
not smart enough to do it all right now. However, So all the technicalities of it interest me first on how this would work. Like release Mike Babcock. What does that mean? Does that mean
sequence? You fire him.
So you fire him. So why would Mike want to go to a team that's now going to give up a draft pick? Why does he want to help the team that wants to get rid of him? Why is Mike agreeing to that?
He's giving it up because he gets out of his deal and he agrees to it because he's now going to a spot that maybe he wants to be. Like, again, this is discussed.
Edmonton or Buffalo.
But I don't know why that's such a foreign concept when he already agreed to go play in Detroit for a bunch of years, or coach in Detroit, and he's from Saskatchewan. Like, it's not as though this guy is from Tampa Bay.
Because this is the end of Mike's career. He's done it. He's here. He's in Toronto.
But one of the options is to go coach Connor McDavid, and the other one is to go coach a team in Buffalo that gets an opportunity to face the team that has thrown him away and also is loaded with, I think, the #1 farm system in all of hockey.
I think it's ridiculous to try to frame this that Mike would want this.
Okay.
To say that Mike Babcock would find any appeal in this outside of just saying to Kyle Dubas, like, no. What? Yeah. Like, no. If you want to fire me, fire me. Then I'll consult the other 31 teams and see if anyone's interested in my services. And in the meantime, I'll collect the 4 years at however much he's still owed, which,
don't you think he wants to coach? I don't think he's the type of guy who just wants to go sit on a beach somewhere and collect his $4 million. Like, he seems to me to be a guy.
Sure.
And he will. If he's fired, he'll be at the top of the list. That's the thing that I have
everybody's
trouble
list,
with too. Is the motivation, and then
everyone's list.
Okay, I mean, outside of guys who are comfortable like Tampa, might love their John Cooper, and but I think pretty much every team would say, yeah, we take Mike over our guy.
See, I look at this right now as an opportunity. The way I would be selling this, and I completely acknowledge that these are the plot holes in all this, right? Is that the actual human dynamics are? I have to make stretches and I have to take leaps here, but to me, the sale is again that you still have your reputation intact. Like, there's no fear of this falling apart, you being the scapegoat if things go wrong in Toronto now, that you can still be viewed as a figure, much like I think Mark Hunter was on the way out, where you had your faction, right, where people are pissed, and you still have your credibility completely intact. And the other one is that, to me, from a hockey standpoint, again, I view the NHL as like, there's a lot of markets that, you probably don't want to live in or that aren't that attractive. Like, is Winnipeg a great place to live? I would argue not.
That's
but
rude.
There's not that many teams, right? There's going to be 32 teams in the league, and if you can be a head coach of one, you should be happy with that. And if you get an opportunity to, again...
What are you talking about?
Well, I'm saying that Buffalo and Edmonton, from a hockey standpoint, represent really cool things.
Can I Piggy, because I was thinking a little bit about how you get the motivations to work out here. And Edmonton Oilers, they need a general manager, they need a head coach. They need some things over in Edmonton. And I think if I'm trying to figure out a way where this makes sense, is that the conversation starts not with Mike Babcock, but with the Edmonton Oilers first.
It starts with both the Oilers and the Sabres because you want to pit them against each other and let them know.
Right. But you say, but you start with the Oilers and you're like, hey, Bob Nicholson, hey, we'll hold on to Mike Babcock. We're fine with him, but like we could see a scenario where we move on from him.
Well, those two teams got to find a guy in the
interim. And it's like you got to find a guy. So like, are you interested in this guy right now? Because if you say no, then we'll hold on to him. We're fine. We don't think he's gonna hold our franchise back. And then at that point, that's the motivation for them to give something up. And then maybe it doesn't even involve Mike Babcock at that point because you just fire him and he catches on with the Oilers.
I just can't even believe how many steps down the road we are talking about something that's not going to happen. If you're Kyle Dubas and you're listening to us three right now, you're just going,
you're like, man, what? JD, I put up that thing about how I'm hiring. Please step into the front office immediately.
But it's just, to me, you've hired a guy, as you put it, to be a pillar of stability for this franchise and to sort of turn this boat around. The boat is turned around, and it's a stable franchise. They're among the league's best teams, and they're going to be again next year. We agree they've got better every single season. They hired Mike in a way that's never been done in the NHL in terms of what they paid him, the term they gave him. They made a statement here that they're betting on Mike Babcock. I think it's embarrassing for them to come out after 4 years and to have him achieve the goal within the timeline they set. To say, no, now we're greedy. Now it's too much. Bring in the guy who's never coached in the NHL before, or bring in whoever. It's too much to not give Mike the start of this next season just to see how things go, to see if the guys respond to Mike and they're able to, look like they're going to be a different team than last year. If everyone quits on Mike by Christmas, I'm on board. But if you
see a scenario where Babcock could be fired in season?
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But hold on, I don't see a scenario where it's worth the 3rd or 4th round draft pick you're talking about for Kyle and the Leafs to finagle their way out of Mike Babcock.
So to me, the worth it, quote unquote, is that, again, I think it's a situation where everyone does save face. And that it's
I
like
don't think I think you're totally wrong. That's embarrassing for Kyle and it's embarrassing for
but
Mike
why
Babcock.
is it embarrassing for Kyle that if he was going to fire him anyway, that
Then
he
fire
actually
him
gets
if you want to
something?
fire him.
And I don't know how it's embarrassing for him, especially since like he wasn't the general manager that hired Mike Babcock. Like he's never been his guy. And to me, it's like,
does everyone forget that Kyle was a part of the staff?
he was a
here?
part of the staff, but let's be serious here. He's not the guy that went to the wall and said, we got to hire Babcock. He's not the guy that sat down with the one-on-one meeting and said, this is our shared vision together. And I keep going back to that clip of Kyle that I'm sure you've seen at this point at the Sloan Analytics Conference talking about the differences that you can see in a group by moving on from a head coach and that you need to be on the same page. And I guess the thing that I keep coming back to, which is the struggle for me to believe in Mike Babcock, because I agree with you. Like, things have gotten better. Yeah. Things aren't as bad as people want to make them seem. Some of the problems you've pointed out, like the idea that a veteran gets too many minutes, like go watch another team. Like that's a thing on every single team just about up and down the board. Like the guy the Leafs cut last year in Eric Fair was in San Jose playing their #1 penalty kill, and their fans were not exactly like, hey, Eric Fair, like it's so great to have you here.
Yeah.
Like this happens. It's a league-wide problem. So that's why I'm not in it's a do or die situation. I do think there's some nuance here. But I keep going back to the same thing, which is that, am I really going to believe Mike Babcock is going to change? Am I really going to believe that there's all of a sudden going to be some kumbaya moment where he and Dubas sit down at the table and Dubas says, listen, this is the thing I'm trying to do. Skill, 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 skill.
Yeah.
And Babcock sits there like, you know what? With my gold medals and my cup and all my experience, I'm going to listen to you and say, this is the way it should be done, and I'm going to change my philosophy and coach this team the way you want me to.
At the same time, he's hyper competitive, and he's worked his way to the NHL, to the Toronto Maple Leafs, to this media market, and I think he has pride and doesn't want to get fired halfway through this contract because things didn't go well enough. It will be remembered maybe here in Toronto amongst the media if this tenure doesn't even go halfway. And I think Mike is going to do what it takes. There is some survival mode and some level of pride in being in the NHL and being a part of this franchise, I think. And I think Mike, like everyone else, will have to make adjustments. And I think he's going to be smart enough to recognize when he's sitting at the cottage with a rum and Coke this summer, go, ah, man.
It's Corona. I've seen it.
Is it? That was a little too much patty last year, boys. I think he's gonna. I think there will be tweaks, even if they're small. Yeah, they're coming.
Oh, I love that. I really do hope he's just looking at the lake. It's Canada Day.
Just having a moment.
He's like, no, you just hear a subtle expletive, and it resonates across the entire lake.
I picture it like his wife was trying to get his attention for a minute. She's like, Mike, and he's like, sorry, I was just thinking about how I shouldn't have said that thing about we felt Patty should be out there. That made no sense. That was a bit of a tough look for me. Okay.
All right.